All right. Thanks so much for being on this podcast. I appreciate it. First question that I have for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in your candle making business.
Yeah. So I'm a Seattle native, but I found myself down in the South in Atlanta for college, after graduating from Garfield. And then I went on to get my master's degree in San Francisco and then started working in Los Angeles. And while I was there, I sort of jumped into my first I guess you could say like adult career job where you're sort of refining your skills in your industry, which at that time I was in marketing. I was working in these boutique small ad agencies in Hollywood. And relatively quickly into the process, I really started experiencing um, a pretty severe case of burnout. I maybe was even 2 years in, but what I really found was that a lot of the work that I was doing was completely soul sucking and that it was nothing that I was inspired to do. And I sort of really began to question, is this what I was put on earth to do? Is this my life's calling? Is this my life's work? And I knew that it wasn't, but I wasn't really sure where to go from there. And I kept getting promoted in my roles and kept jumping to different agencies. And the pressure on the job sort of began to increase. And in order to reconnect to my values, to my calling, to my interest, I began a pretty serious self-care practice before going to these pretty intense 16-hour day jobs. So I began teaching myself how to make um, everything from like like this, like a little lip balm or chapstick to like a body scrub or facial cleanser. And after a few weeks of that, I decided I was ready for a challenge, and wanted to push myself a bit more. And I taught myself how to make candles for the first time in 2016 in my kitchen. And it gave me so much joy because I'd come home from work and I'd be really excited to sort of see how my little DIY experiments came out. Um, and you know, I really slowly and organically started growing that because it made me feel more connected to myself. So I started with farmers markets and little pop-up shops here and there, and I slowly started by building out an Etsy store, and then eventually launched my own website. And yeah, 10 plus years later, we're still we're still going, and I still love it. So it was really never meant to be a business. It was really just an answer to sort of being at a crossroads in my career, and trying to find something that felt more authentic to my personality.
Mm-hmm. So what goes into making a candle? Like, 'cause it sounds so interesting.
Yeah, it's a great question. That is part of why I was, interested in doing it. Both soap and candle making are a slightly more scientific process than other things like sugar scrubs or lip balms, or what have you. Those are, you can do some infused oils relatively easily, but both candles and soap making require a bit more due diligence. So essentially you're sort of selecting a vessel that you want to pour a candle into. And then you're identifying the type of wax you want to use. It could be anything from beeswax to coconut wax to soy wax or paraffin wax, each of which have their own properties and benefits, etc. I personally chose soy wax because it was sustainable, a renewable source. And then you also have to select your wick, and then you can get to play around with different fragrances. In the beginning, I was making candles exclusively with pure essential oils, which proved to be really difficult because essential oils are not as stable, just depending on the harvest of that particular year and the density of the oils. Um, so I I became like a little scientist in my kitchen with a little notebook and coming up with all these little equations and testing things. And I had so many failures. I had so many failures of candles that didn't burn properly or candles that didn't smell very strong or too strong or the wick is too big or the wick's not big enough. So it really took about a year and a half to kind of come down with my recipe. And then once you sort of land on that, then it's, smooth sailing, but you do continue, like for the light, any candle maker will tell you that you continue to test throughout the life of your business, just because as you know, making a candle in the summer is completely different from making it in the winter, for instance, because of the temperature in the rooms, and that impacts how the candle cools, how it cures, whether or not you get a smooth surface. So it's been fun to sort of yeah, lean into a little bit more of a scientific thing because it keeps me sharp. Like it keeps me um, the you never really get bored with it because you there's always something new to learn about it.
Mm-hmm. Because, oftentimes when sort of creating a business like candle making, it requires you to keep it up. So like, how do you sort of do that to keep up, because doing a business is hard. So like,
Hmm. Yeah, how have I kept things up? That's a great question. Um, I haven't always. I've been doing this 10 years now, plus years, and I would say that the business is a reflection of me and it's also a reflection of where my life is at that particular time. So I have times in my life where I'm really, really inspired by what I'm doing and I'm really passionate about it and I'm excited and feeling really motivated about expanding and growing and scaling the business. So in Seattle, that meant, hiring, having a team of young ladies that were local high school students that worked with me for a little over a year. Expanding into a production studio, having larger partnerships with corporations and I think we were with the Seahawks for a couple of like holiday seasons and stuff like that. So we expanded when it felt right. And then over the last couple of years, I've relocated. I left Seattle. I've moved to Atlanta. I got married. I'm starting my family here. And I think because of that, I allow the business to slow down. So I allow for my business to sort of have seasonalities, which is what we see in nature anyway, is that there's summer, spring, winter, fall. Like there's always going to be these sort of cyclical element to what happens around us. And so I allow for that to be the case in my business. I am not um, I'm not looking for venture capitals, funding. I'm not looking for angel investors. I've done all of this on my own for the last 10 years. And I think that's allowed for me to make those decisions about when I want the business to ramp up and when I want it to, sort of be in a maintenance mode because I have other priorities in my life. And that's what's allowed for me to not get burnt out doing it and keep feeling excited about it because um, I'm not pushing the only goal that I'm really pushing for it is for me to continue to feel connected to it.
mm-hmm. My next question is this: how important is it for one to do their own thing? Because oftentimes they have like a goal in mind, but it doesn't go anywhere, you know? So like, how important is it, especially to sort of shift and pivot, just like you did?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting in the beginning. What I found difficult for me was that as soon as I told people that I was going to start a business or that I had this idea about maybe selling candles, I got flooded with so many people that had perspectives on what it should look like, what kind of scents I should have, other types of products that I should expand to beyond candles and where I should sell them and like the themes and the colors and they just had a bunch of ideas and it was I appreciated it because people were really excited and enthusiastic about what I was doing, but it also felt like too many cooks in the kitchen because it made it harder to hear my own voice. And I think that's the most important part when you start because you can really see in brands for some of my close friends that have their own companies that are also entrepreneurs, where they have really found success is when you can tell that they've been able to drop into a part of who they are to allow for a unique part of their personality to shine in the business. So for instance, a close friend of mine is really, really good with words. She writes the most incredible poems and letters. And she's just had a way with words for years. And she's now turned that into a greeting card company, which makes sense because that was her gift all along. So yeah, I mean, doing something your own way, I think is imperative because I also think the customer can tell when you're presenting something inauthentically. And I also think it's harder to sustain it over time if it doesn't really reflect something that you care about.
Mm-hmm. My next question is how, what have you learned in doing this kind of work, like this candle making business? What have you been able to reflect on in terms of like your own sense of self-discovery and sort of your sense in the world, I guess?
Wow, great. I think I think what I've sort of determined or learned is that, growing up, I think we were taught or, this idea of entrepreneurship was this really elusive sort of thing that maybe I thought looked like a certain person, or looked like it had to look or feel a particular way. And I think so many of us, at least in my generation, have been really dismantling that and challenging what entrepreneurship looks like, and creating brands that are really beautiful, that they feel connected and passionate about. So it's been more difficult to do it the way that I've done it, where I haven't had a path to scale that has been aggressive necessarily. Um, it sort of has been a slow burn, not for no pun
Mm-hmm.
intended. But yeah, I think just choosing to accept that entrepreneurship and business ownership can be as unique as your own individual personality, and not feeling the need to cave into giving up equity in your company or pitching it to someone else if you're not ready or if that's not the business model that feels true to you. Um, and I think again, this idea of allowing for the business to sort of fluctuate as it needs to, I think it creates a bit more of an agile company also that can sort of change with the times, where you kind of as a creative person, because you have to be creative in doing this, so you have to wear
Mm-hmm.
so many different hats. Um, I think that, you taking a couple steps back from it sometimes is really, really helpful to come back into it renewed with fresh eyes. And that's been over the last 2 years has been really helpful. I took a considerable step back from it, as you can probably see on my Instagram page, because I'm only posting personal family pics these days. I've barely been posting candle stuff these days because my life has been really full in other ways. And so again, my brand just reflects whatever's going on in my life at that time. But yeah, I mean, I think just sort of having the courage to define business in a way that feels true to you is, the most sort of revolutionary thing that you can do is with an idea that you come up with, that it just doesn't have to look like anyone has ever told you.
Mm-hmm. My next question is how important is it to create like a product that sort of resonates with people? Because let me give you an example. The reason why I do this podcast is because I want to, communicate aspects around the disability community and stuff because I myself identify as someone with a disability and I just want to communicate that. So what I'm trying to ask you is how important is it to create a brand, but that sort of resonates with people that says like, hey, oh, I not only like candles, but it means something.
Yeah, yeah. I think that a lot of that comes with the early ideation phase. So I spent a lot of time before I launched the brand visualizing what I wanted it to look like. So the idea to actually start the company came to me actually when I was in the middle of a meditation. I was, had finished a yoga practice. Again, this is when my life looked very different than it does now. But when I was living in Los Angeles and was totally stressed working these awful jobs. And again, I was just trying to do some self-care practices in the morning. And in one of my morning sort of practices, I sort of heard a message that told me to start making things with my hands. And so, even early on, I remember really profusely, like I was just blogging a bunch and writing a lot about my process. I had a lot to say in the beginning, because it was about trying to encourage both myself and others it was really less about the candles, but more about encouraging people to find ways, self-care practices to like calm the nervous system and to come back into your own body and to um, calm any anxiousness or stress and sort of really like remove self from technology a bit, like really encourage deeper breathing, more sleep, more rest, more like just bringing everything down. I really needed to just really calm everything down in my life. And candles have always been for me a visual representation of that. Like anytime I'm in a space, if there's candles there, I'm already feeling a completely different vibe, a completely different energy. I grew up with candles. They were a big part of my childhood. And so again, yeah, I think, my in the beginning it was really less. I would say, yeah, I want people to buy my candles, but really you could buy any candle. It really doesn't matter as long as what you're doing is creating a space in your home or your work environment that you can feel good about, that sort of like brings you back into your own body and into your own space. And it just so happens that the mood board and the brand and the website and this idea that I had in my mind, it just so happens that that resonated with people. But that is the hard part about being in business ownership, is that you sort of have to have the confidence to know that you will find your niche, you will find your people, you will find your demographic. Not everybody's going to love what you do. Not everybody's going to understand it. And that's
Hmm.
okay. There's billions of people on the planet, and whatever customer isn't yours or doesn't jive with what you do, or if they buy from you once and never again, it's okay. There's so many more people who celebrate what you do, who will continue to support you. So you kind of just have to know that your community and your tribe, like if you build it, they'll come.
Yeah, because I know there's always gonna be like these people that will support you, but all these haters that are, and you just gotta be like, bye.
Well, yeah, that's a because I remember in the beginning I sort of stalled for a while because I'm like, there's so many candle brands out there. There's the Yankee candles and all the Bath and Body Works and all the this and that. Like, why would someone I for a while questioned if there was room for me in the industry because there was so many. I think I went on Etsy and I like typed in candles and I was like flooded with hundreds and hundreds of like little mom and pop candle making shops. And I was like, how is anybody going to care to buy mine over theirs? They've been established for years, etc. But sure enough, there's plenty of room for me in this space, which is what I found. So you just have to you just have to start. If I could go back and tell myself in the beginning anything, I think what I learned was like you just start. Just throw it out there, start the project, put out the item, make the t-shirt, whatever it is that your thing is. It doesn't have to be perfect in order for someone to be excited about purchasing from you. And you can continue to refine even once your product's already live in market.
Hmm. Lastly, what advice would you give to those entrepreneurs or anyone who wants to start their own business, who wants to do what you're doing with your candles and stuff?
Yeah. I think in the beginning, I was so happy because it was such a departure from the work that I was doing. I was so happy to spend these all-nighters. I would be up till 4 o'clock in the morning researching some aspect of the business, like whether it was shipping or um, the pros and cons of using an essential oil versus a fragrance oil, or different types of wicks, or how to create your Etsy page and taxes. Like there's so many parts of the business that you have to learn that actually have absolutely nothing to do with making a candle. Like learning how to make a beautiful candle is very much step one. There's a million steps that come after that. So I think as a business owner, you have to sort of understand that you making a good product, maybe you're really good at juicing stuff and you make up really beautiful fruit or vegetable juices that people enjoy. Cool. Great. You have a great product, but nobody's going to know about it unless you have the courage to put yourself out there. And I think that comes with having what might for you feel like an imperfect product at times, because often we criticize our own process or our own product 10 times more than anybody else will notice. There's so many things with the early iterations of my candle that I'm like, this isn't perfect yet, or I don't like this yet. But then when I would ask 10 people for their perspective, they were like, oh, I would have never noticed that. This little thing that you think is wrong with it, I would have never noticed that. People they don't pay attention to the same things that you do. So you just have to throw it out there and then you have to be comfortable with making some mistakes and giving yourself a little time to recover and try it again.
Hmm. It's sort of like that show Shark Tank. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like there are these people that come in and they pitch their ideas, and they have to convince, like, should the other sharks to sell it. So it kind of feels like that way.
Completely, yeah. And I think the thing that's great about Shark Tank is how um, what you notice about all of the companies that come on there is how well they know their product. So they can sort of spitball all of the numbers about their product really well, and they can sell it from their elevator pitch on how they're describing their product is really, really great. So yeah, it is a little bit like that. But also, I have to tell myself this, and I tell other people that you might not have a product that you want to go up on Shark Tank because a lot of those companies are willing to give up equity, and that may not be everyone's journey. You may want to retain 100% of ownership over what you're doing. And it may mean that your growth is a little bit slower. But it doesn't mean that you can't still scale, because then you have nobody else telling you what to do.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yep. Alrighty.